going to hear this story now about the University of Birmingham, who've apologised to staff after failing to pay some of them for months. Now, it's after BBC WM uncovered major problems with the university's new payroll system, which was used to recruit and manage casual workers over the summer, including the university's own students. Now, we're talking about like temporary jobs, like working at open days or at conferences and carrying out paid research projects or internships. But they're now wishing they never bothered because the university still hasn't paid them.
That's outrageous. And all of this comes as students get ready for the new term, of course. Some students have even told us that they've had to move back in with their parents or had to borrow money from them because they can't afford their rent. We understand that hundreds of casual workers are affected by this, and our reporter Laura Chiverton's been speaking to two of them.
I'm Emily Adams and I'm a student here at the University of Birmingham. I'm a physicist, and for 5 weeks over the summer I spent my time doing a placement with the Birmingham Energy Institute doing a desktop-based study for which I was owed £1,500, and I'm still waiting on over £300 of that to be paid to me. I have had to move back home because I can't actually afford to stay at the university. I can't financially support myself because the university have still got my money.
And these problems have arisen really because this is a new system that lots of people have been having problems with, and it's caused a lot of stress, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has caused a lot of stress. So I think there are over 300 of us that have been affected by the issues from WorkLink and payroll. There have been people that work in the student bars on campus, and there are people that have been waiting for wages from open days and that sort of thing, which took place in April and March.
And was that study, taking part in the study, the first time you'd worked for the university?
Yeah, so that was the first time I'd ever worked for the university. It's my first placement at the university, but I think this has kind of put me off doing anything like this. Again, the actual experience of working for the university was great. The members of staff that I was with were really supportive. The friends that I was on placement with were fantastic. It's just what's come after. I didn't think I'd have to be fighting the university for my money.
And as a result, this group has been set up called the University of Birmingham Student Workers. Mm-hmm. You've worked out that around 300 of you are affected.
Yeah, it does feel good to know that I'm not the only one, because when I initially went into payroll the first time and tried to say to them that I'd been taxed incorrectly, they did say to me that I was the only person to have ever gone into the payroll office and blamed WorkLink or payroll for these issues. I was spoken to by 3 different members of staff who were all telling me different things, and it was just so frustrating and really patronising. I ended up leaving the office in tears. I did this work so that I could support myself through the summer. I wanted to be able to pay my rent. I don't want to be living on the bank of mum and dad. I'm 20 years old and I moved away for uni, for independence, and I feel like I've lost that a little bit because I've not been able to support myself while I'm here, even though I've done the work. The payment side of things has really sort of damaged that relationship that I had with the university. I would encourage anybody that studies here that can financially support themselves without a job, please just don't do it. It's more trouble than it's worth.
Hi, I'm a student at the University of Birmingham. I work as an ambassador, which means I can do outreach work, and I work on open days. Basically, I tell people like information about the courses, and I answer the questions about accommodation and about various other things. The open days that I worked were on the 28th and the 29th of June, and I did just under 15 hours there, which warranted about £150 worth of payment, and I've been waiting since the July 30th for that. I have found them to be one of the worst employers that I've dealt with in my life.
And how has all this left you feeling?
Well, honestly, it's left me quite angry at times because I've felt quite exploited before, and it really does make you feel kind of worthless as an employee and as a worker. There's people who are student workers here who haven't been able to pay this month's rent. Basically, they've been left so far behind on their payments, and it's probably going to affect them quite a long way into the future, because some people received kind of partial payments, some people received the full amount, some people received nothing at all, some people have been taxed incorrectly. I have now resigned as well because the situation was just that terrible.
That's our reporter Laura Chiverton talking to 2 students who weren't properly paid for work that they did on campus over the summer. And we'll hear what the university had to say about this in just a minute. But first, Phoebe Gill, who started a petition and wrote an open letter to the Vice-Chancellor about this, is with us now. Good morning, Phoebe.
Morning.
Why did you start this petition?
Well, I started seeing a few posts on Facebook from other students in a student group just saying that they hadn't been paid and things yet, and I was also experiencing that, so I just reached out to them and then sent a few tweets, and Unison actually reached out to me and asked me what was going on. So I just decided to organise some students to sort of understand where these issues are coming from.
And how has this affected the students, and how have they reacted to not being paid?
I think everyone's just extremely frustrated at this point. The university really push student casual work as something that's sort of enriching for our experience at the university, and it is. The actual work is great. I really enjoyed what I did personally, but it's just become quite insulting, to be honest, that we've had to chase around for months and we're getting ignored. The university aren't fully addressing all of the issues, despite the apologies. For example, the tax issue hasn't been addressed by the university. I think it's just really disappointing.
So this has happened to you then, and has it affected you personally?
Well, I worked a conference for a week, and I would have had enough money to cover one of my month's rents this summer through it. But because I was emergency taxed, I lost over £100 on my paycheck and have had to borrow money from my parents to pay rent, which I didn't really want to have to do. So that's just put a lot of stress on me, and I've been, in and out of the WorkLink office while I was working, and also phoning up the university like several times a week for the whole summer, trying to sort these issues out.
And apart from pay you, what else would you like to see the university do?
I think our main concern is the fact that there's been a complete lack of communication with the students. We've had 2 apologies issues, but they haven't gone to everyone because not everyone is on an assignment anymore, so they're not receiving the emails. And also just no communication on the tax problems that we've had, being registered with the wrong tax code. We think the university just needs to communicate more, tell students what's going on, and also the financial compensation offered in terms of covering overdraft fees doesn't really take into consideration all the other financial issues students are having. For example, having to quit jobs and borrow money. They're not really acknowledging this.
Thanks very much, Phoebe. That's Phoebe Gill, who's been campaigning for fairer treatment of casual workers at the University of Birmingham. A spokesman for the university said, "We understand that ensuring students and staff are paid on time and correctly is imperative, and we would like to apologise to all of those affected. Whilst this issue has impacted on less than 3% of staff paid through the payroll, we are conscious of the effect this has had on individuals, and we're taking this extremely seriously."
Yeah, and the statement goes on to say, "We are continuing to work very hard to ensure that those affected receive the correct pay as quickly as possible. Arrangements have been put in place and communicated to students, enabling them to access immediate funds so they do not fall into financial hardship. In addition, we have offered immediate payment of any costs incurred, example, bank charges, etc." I think it's been a lack of communication as much as anything has been the issue.
But also, if you're changing over to a new payroll system or a new business system, I've been involved in these changes before. The very first thing you do is make sure everybody gets paid. Whether your tax codes can be a bit wonky, there can be other issues, but people have to be paid because people rely on them.